Everyday people working 9 to 5, saving up that money, trying to survive, investing in the future, trying to be wise, through loving money hero. Yeah.
Hi, I'm Nick Johnson, host of Everyday Money Heroes, and I've reached early retirement. I'm here to provide information on how to obtain financial independence and inspire you through sharing stories of everyday people who are turning knowledge into freedom.
That hustle, always reaching for the sky. We're gonna be money heroes, never gonna shy.
Hello and welcome to Everyday Money Heroes, where we provide information and inspiration to people of all ages to take control of their financial journey. I'm your host, Nick Johnson, and today we will discuss what is FIRE, what are the different types of FIRE, and are you able to join the community? All right. First of all, uh, what is FIRE? FIRE is an acronym. FIRE stands for Financial Independence, Retire Early. And here at Everyday Money Heroes, we focus more on the FI part, not necessarily the RE. What we want is for individuals to be financially independent, have a stable financial foundation, and then ultimately, if they decide to retire or retire early, that's okay. But we want those individuals to be financially stable. Okay. So FIRE is for people who desire ownership of their time. They no longer want to have to exchange their time for money. Okay. And there are some things that typically individuals within the FIRE community really identify with. So I'm going to share those common principles or tenets around that. And then I'm going to actually get into the different flavors of FIRE. So when I talk about different flavors of FIRE, think of it as ice cream. You know, um, you might have chocolate, butter pecan, or if in the South, pecan, and vanilla, whatever. It is still all ice cream, but it's different flavors. Well, it's different flavors of FIRE also. So we'll get into the different flavors of FIRE. But first, I want to share some common tenets around the FIRE movement. Okay, so first of all, one of the common tenets within the FIRE community is delayed gratification. Okay, so basically, delayed gratification is being able to say, okay, I am going to wait at the opportune time to do something. Okay, it could be whether, hey, you know what, I'm going to wait to get a new vehicle because I still have a vehicle that is operationally safe. I might want something newer, but I'm going to wait until it is an opportune time for me to do it, whether it's that I have a larger nest egg of money. You can get a better price on a vehicle or whatever. So just really believing in delayed gratification. Also, something else that identifies members within the community of FIRE is intentional spending. People within the FIRE movement are very intentional with what they spend their money on. They don't necessarily buy things just to have things. So they're very intentional. For me, there are certain things that I get value out of. For instance, I value experiences over things. So I am perfectly fine with spending money on a trip versus spending money on, you know, whether it be a watch or some additional, particular brand of clothing. That doesn't really float my boat. There's some people who are like, hey, you know what? I don't have to travel, but I prefer to have, you know, this particular type of car. Okay, so the thing is that, okay, they're very intentional with their spending. They're just not spending money to do it. They have a purpose behind it. Okay. Another one of the common principles of FIRE is living below your means. Why is living below your means important? It's because we have to have that gap. Okay. We've talked about it in a previous video. And when it comes to frugal living, that, that gap allows us to be able to invest in pay off debt. Okay, so that's why, if you have someone who's making $100,000 a year and they're spending $100,000 a year, they're just breaking even. So you have to be able to live below your means, take that gap between what you have and what you're spending, and take that difference and go ahead and invest and pay down debt. Okay. Next thing we're going to do is talk about consistently investing. So typically individuals within the fire movement, they are consistently investing. Um, you can invest in individual stocks, but typically what they're doing, they're investing in mutual funds or ETFs. ETF is an exchange traded fund, which is like a stock. And they'll go and typically do something like a total stock market or an S&P 500. And so those things will typically give you somewhere between 8 and 10% um, return every year. They just invest in that. So they really want to take the simple path to wealth. Okay, as you'll hear within the community. So that's what they'll do. Not saying that you can't invest in the stock market with individual stocks. I have some individual stocks, but the bulk of my portfolio is ETFs and primarily S&P 500. And to even be more specific, I'm just a fan of Vanguard, so it's VOO. So that's what I usually do. Uh, then another one of the core tenets in FIRE is optimizing when possible. Okay, so how can we optimize? You might hear individuals say, hey, I do travel hacking. And so optimizing in that particular instance is that, okay, I have a credit card. I know that I have a certain amount of money I'm going to spend every month, but I'm going to pay that credit card off in full at every statement. At that particular point, it allows me to get points. I'm not paying any additional interest, yet I'm able to get points and then use those points to be able to go and book hotels or to book flights. Okay, so that is optimizing when possible. There are some other things that I know personally I like to do in regards to optimizing. I know I like gift cards. I like to buy gift cards when they're on sale. And that's one of the big things I like to do. So I like to buy gift cards when they're on sale for places that I know I'm going to go to. And then I take those discounted gift cards and then I go when they're actually having a type of sale at that establishment or that restaurant or that business and then I'm double dipping. It's great. Okay, so that's just examples of optimizing. Actually, I have a good friend. We're going to do an episode soon on optimizing, like using gift cards and things like that. So definitely stay tuned for that. And also belief in the power of community. That's I'd have to say the best thing about fire and the fire movement is the belief in community. It is just individuals who are coming together trying to help one another to achieve their goal. And that's ultimately what it is. You have to have that belief in community. If you don't know something, you can always put a question out to the community and more than likely, it's somebody there who's going to be able to give you a well-informed answer to a question. And that's one of the things I enjoy most about the community. It doesn't matter if you have questions about insurance, if you have questions about Roth conversions, if you have questions about different types of brokerage, it's always someone who's willing to give an answer to a question. But also, if they don't know the answer to a question, they usually know somebody who could connect you to the information and the knowledge that you're seeking. So that's one of the important things within the fire movement. And often individuals say, okay, well, this sounds good. Is there like a membership fee? Is there a secret handshake? No, there is not. There's no membership fees. There is no secret handshakes. When it comes down to fire, the fire movement, I tell individuals there is no political or religious affiliation with the fire movement. Anyone can join. It is a collection of people who want to support each other in their financial journey to no longer have to exchange their time for money. That's literally it. Um, I know individuals might say that sounds too good to be true. Um, it is good and it's true, but it's not too good, if that makes sense. So do know that literally it is just a movement of individuals who don't want to be caught up in commercialism, who aren't really into a whole lot of material things. They just want to go ahead and just really have that sense of community and do that. If you think about it, I mean, if you follow a particular football team, I'm in Jacksonville, got the Jags. I mean, you can walk around and there's a sense of community of people who are supporting the Jags. Well, fire is another community as well. There's a sense of connectedness because we have a common belief system. And some of those things I just shared right now is that common belief system that individuals have within the fire movement. Okay. So other thing I want to share in regards to the fire movement. So we've talked about what fire is. Some of the common principles and tenets behind fire. But let's talk about the different flavors. Because as I said before, um, just like ice cream or different flavors, there's different flavors of financial independence. And actually, there's going to be two that you may have not heard of. actually, in doing some additional research for this, I crossed one that I had not necessarily heard about. So I'll make sure to call that one out as well toward the end. So let's go ahead and talk about it. And one of the things I really enjoy sharing here are statistics. Okay. And so one of the interesting statistics that I found was from Motley Fool. Motley Fool gathered data between 2016 and 2022 on the percentage of Americans who are retiring in four age brackets. From 40 to 44 is 1%. From 45 to 49 is 2%. From 50 to 54 is 6%. From 55 to 59 is 11%. So just thinking about it, you can see how the older you get, the higher the percentage of retirees, but still, once we get to that 55 to 59 age bracket, and 59, remember, that's when you can actually start, to traditionally take money away from your retirement accounts. Only 11% of people are there. So what we want to do is not necessarily common. So if you go and you share this information with someone, they might say, hey, you know what? I don't know if that's achievable. It's okay because many individuals are not striving to achieve this, but those who want to can achieve it. So don't get dismayed in that. Okay. So when we talk about fire, we'll talk about the first form of fire, and that's lean fire. Lean fire is just that if you're planning to kind of live lower than average, lean fire is for you. And I'm gonna take a step back here. Even before I talk about lean fire, let's talk about the common rule of thumb. The rule of thumb is that, okay, to figure out your fire number is when you take your living expenses and you multiply it times 25. So it's your yearly living expenses times the number 25. Okay, so if it takes you $40,000 to live for a year, you multiply it times 25, it's $1 million. So you need $1 million worth of investable assets to be able to retire. And at that particular point, you can take 4% of that money and live off of it. Okay, so that's kind of the rule of thumb. There's been some conversations around, okay, you know what? 4% is kind of low. Actually, you can move it up a little bit, but typically 4% is the rule of thumb. Okay. So when we have that, we talk about lean fire. Lean fire is someone who is very kind of minimalist. Okay. This might be somebody who is going to do van life. It could be someone who maybe will do some geo arbitrage, where it's like, hey, I don't need a lot of money. I'm only concerned about food, clothing, shelter. And that's it. And if you're minimalist, you can get with that. That's called lean fire because you're not going to have a whole lot of room left over for a whole lot of stuff as far as like doing a whole lot of traveling or giving a lot of money to charities and things like that. You're just living lean. So you might say, hey, you know what? I can get away with that. Lean fires for you. If you're not that concerned about a whole lot of other things. Okay, so that is one flavor of fires, but still keep it in mind, still kind of using that rule of thumb of multiplying your yearly cost of living times 25. Okay, so we have lean fire. Next, we have coast fire. Now, coast fire is actually one that I did not know about when I started my journey. It's gotten a lot more popular to say. So when we talk about coast fire, it allows you the opportunity to save your money now, then no longer make contributions to your retirement account, and then allow that compounding to go on. And then when you're ready to do it, you'll be able to go ahead and take that money. Okay, so what is an example of coast fire? So let's say, for instance, you wanted to have, your yearly expenses for living is $60,000. Okay, so you go ahead and you calculate that. If we calculate it, and you want to retire in say 30 years. So say for instance you're 20, you want to retire at 50. What you'll do is you'll start off at 20, you'll start to invest your money. And so if you want to do that, you could start off simply say go 20 years. You can invest $991 a month. Okay. And you could do that every month for 20 years. And then you can stop. So you start off at 20, get to 40. There's no need for you to make any additional investments into your retirement savings. Okay. Whether you have an IRA, a 401k, if you have a taxable brokerage account, at that point you can stop at 20 years. And at that particular point, you'll be right around $633,000 with the compounding and the contributions that you make. And then over those next 10 years of compounding, it'll get you to that $1.5 million mark. Okay. And so that's really the premise of Coast Fire. And they call it that because you're able to kind of go ahead and coast into it. So at that particular point, after those 20 years, you can stop making those investments. You can go ahead, you can take that money, do something else with it, and you'll be good to go. Okay. So that's what Coast Fire is. I know I have some good friends, the Coast Fire couple. That's the approach that they took. They decided to go ahead. They just saved up their money. That's what they did. Also, Andy Hill, who's been here on the show, that's the approach he took as well. They went ahead, they saved up their money, like, okay, we no longer need to invest in these 401ks and these investment vehicles. We can go ahead and now take that money, just live off of it. And so that's what they decided to do. Okay. So that is Coast Fire. So the next one we're going to talk about is Barista Fire. Okay. So what Barista Fire is that this is a really good for individuals. Say, for instance, you might be in a very stressful job right now and you're saying, you know what, I can't take this anymore. What can I do to alleviate the stress and the pressure that I'm dealing with? So, for instance, you can say, okay, I can live off of $60,000 a year. Okay. So, what you would do at that particular point, you would go and you could save up $750,000. Okay, so you can do that. And then you can get like a smaller job to go ahead and make up the difference. Okay. And so you can go ahead and say, okay, I'm going to get a job, say making $30,000 a year. I have $750,000. I can go ahead and I can use that and that can cover my expenses for the year. And part of the reason why they call it Barista Fire is that Barista Fire was kind of synonymous with Starbucks. And so they did that. And another thing that individuals talked about with Barista Fire is that Starbucks actually offered health benefits to their part-time associates. So that's why it became really popular that individuals couldn't just say, hey, you know what, I work this part-time job, I can qualify for health benefits, and then I can just use my investments to supplement my lifestyle. So that's what Barista Fire is. Okay, let's go ahead and take another look at couple more of these flavors of fire. And that's fat fire. Okay, so fat fire is for individuals. So we talked about lean fire. Now let's talk about fat fire. Fat fire is just you want, lavish vacations, you're gonna eat out a lot. You still know that, I'm on a new car, every, 4 years or however many, those are things. So you just really want to have like a really lavish lifestyle. So that's what fat fire is. Okay. And so granted, if you want to have that, that's fine. Just know that it's going to require you to save more money to accomplish that. Okay. So if you look at someone who's lean fire, they can say, all right, I can make it off of $1 million being invested. Someone who is deciding to go like say fat fire, they might need, $3 million of investable assets to be able to continue to live that lifestyle. And that's nothing wrong. That's what you want to do. Just understand that there's going to be some exchanges there for that time versus um, that quality of living that you want. So keep that in mind. So that's fat fire. And a lot of times I've heard numbers associated with it. It's kind of hard to associate numbers to these different flavors of fire because a lot of it is also location specific. You can live a fat fire lifestyle like, say, for instance, if you're in Thailand or Malaysia or something like that, you can live a fat fire lifestyle with the same amount of money if you were in the States and you would have a lean fire lifestyle. So if you had $40,000 a year to live off of here in the US, it looks very different over there if you do some form of geo arbitrage. So I'm not necessarily trying to associate any numbers to these particular flavors of fire. I'm really trying to give more characteristics of it. And so that's fat fire, okay? Um, Two other ones we're going to talk about. One is chubby fire. Okay. And so chubby fire is one that I heard recently. I was like, that's kind of funny. And so if you kind of think of it as a hierarchy, it's like it's kind of right there between it's right up under fat fire as far as chubby fire. Is that okay? Well, you're not really having like this minimalist lifestyle. So you're doing a little stuff, you're going out eating every now and then, you still traveling, but you might not always be doing first class. You maybe, still going out to shows, but not necessarily doing front row seats, so you're still doing that. But you're not necessarily living that lean lifestyle. I think that as far as me and my wife, I think we fall in the chubby because we still believe in doing a lot of things. We believe in going to shows and stuff like that. But we're not necessarily into the extremely luxurious lifestyle. But we do enjoy doing things. So that's where chubby fire is. The last form of fire I'm going to discuss here is going to be cash flow fire. I never heard that before. Actually, I was doing some research and I kind of came across this and I was like, okay, I haven't heard anybody talking about cash flow fire or cash flow fi, but it makes sense. So in the other forms of fire, we focus on having investable assets. So, okay, you want $1 million, because you want to spend $40,000 a year. Okay. The focus of cash flow fire is that, okay, if you say I'm going to live off of $4,000 a month, you just get enough inflows from streams of cash flow just to cover $4,000. So you're not really that concerned where it's coming from. So say, for instance, I know some individuals who are heavily into real estate, and that's how they're financing their early retirement because they just have enough rental homes where it cash flows their lifestyle. And so that is a way that you can do it. Some individuals, believe it or not, if you think about cash flow fi, would be Social Security. So it wouldn't necessarily be to retire early, but a lot of people, that is how they live. They don't have, investable assets. They don't have stocks or anything like that. They're just living off of Social Security. So that's basically just cash flow fi. You might have a pension. That is cash flow fi. Say if you were in the military and you did your full, time to get to retirement and you can live off that, cash flow fi. Say for instance, you have an annuity. That's also another form of cash flow fi. So that was a little different. Hadn't heard before, but makes sense. So typically you probably hear people who were maybe in the military, um, or they're doing real estate, they're kind of cash flow fire. So those are the flavors of fire. So let's go back over those again. We talked about lean fire, coast fire. We talked about barista fire. We talked about fat fire, chubby fire, and cash flow fire. Okay. So that being said, that is fire. Those are the different flavors of fire. But the great thing about it, all you have to do is have the desire and put in the work, and you'll be able to not only be a member of the fire community, you'll be able to achieve financial independence and retire early if you choose. That being said, I want to thank you so much for your time. If you have not, like, share, and subscribe. Uh, as always, I want to remind you to trust the process, and I'm going to ask you to have a great day. Take care.